Okay, the time is 7:03. I'll call the regular meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Tyne,
Here.
Richard,
Here.
Oliver,
Here.
Hendricks,
Here.
Furtado,
Here.
Mayor Samuel.
Here, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, the agenda will stand. We'll move on to approval of consent agenda. Item 3.1, minutes of regular meeting of June 16th, 2026. 3.2, approval of bill list dated July 1st, 2026, and payroll ledger dated June 26th, 2026. 3.3, excused absence for council member Benedict Rotano for the June 16th, 2026 regular meeting. 3.4, consideration of ordinance number 04-26, series of 2026, first reading to set the public hearing, in ordinance adopting by reference the Summit County Building Code and such secondary codes as adopted and amended therein. 3.5, approval of town-owned property for the 7th Annual Summit Historical Society Vintage Baseball Game. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Furtado,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Oliver,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Tyne,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Mayor Samuel.
Yes. We'll move on to item 4, citizen comments. Citizens are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Council will take comments into consideration but will not make decisions at this time. Council will not engage in back and forth dialogue but may respond to a speaker with brief factual information or refer the speaker to the town manager or to arrange a meeting with an appropriate staff member for discussion of the speaker's topic at an appropriate time. However, the council has no obligation to engage with the speaker by either of the foregoing methods or at all. We'll move on to the sign-in sheet. We have Allison Johnston.
He was here, yeah.
Okay, I do not see her here, so we'll move on to Len Smirlo. Yes, Len, if you would just state your name and address, and then you'll, 3-minute timer will start.
Evening. My name is Len Smirlo. I live at 11 Corinthian Circle in Dillon. I've been encouraged by a number of people to address you about these topics. I also have some handouts for the members outlining my comments and also the research that I did to support my comments. My comments tonight are in regards to the conditions at the Dillon Amphitheater. Over the past few years, there have been several changes regarding what is allowed and not allowed inside the amphitheater. We currently have inspections and searches similar to the TSA at the airports. When asked about these changes, I was advised that they are industry standards. I have to assume that these changes are implemented for my safety and welfare. To inform and educate patrons of these rules, there are numerous signs and banners posted all around the amphitheater about but what about the use of cannabis or marijuana? No signs, no banners. The only mention of its use is listed as item number 3 and 4 on the Dillon Amphitheater website under venue policies where it notes as quoted, it's strictly prohibited. And I'm like, really? In my experiences, many users believe that marijuana use is legal anywhere in Colorado. This is not true, and I'd like you to believe that you already know this. But as a reminder and for your reference, I researched Amendment 26, and it is not allowed, its use is not allowed in any public place. Honestly, I really don't care about what others decide to do in regards to smoking. but when in public and in crowds, the smoke affects all others around them. For me personally, I get headaches and nauseous. For decades, we've heard about the hazards of secondhand smoke. Does this apply to marijuana smoke as well? Well, I researched for the opinions of the American Cancer Society and the Allergy Asthma Network. They both strongly recommend not smoking or inhaling secondhand smoke of marijuana. These individuals that like to partake in smoking have options available to them. They can smoke before they come to the event. They can step outside the venue or use their edibles. All of the people who are around them have no options other than to endure and suffer the smoke. What are you going to say to an asthmatic person who suffers an attack as a result of the secondhand smoke? As a former police officer of 31 years, I understand the complexities of enforcing this restriction in venues like the amphitheater. Let me make some suggestions that would hopefully help the situation. First, signage. Just like it is posted all around the amphitheater about chairs and bags, we could post in big, bold letters, no smoking of any type, including marijuana and vaping. Place the same warnings in more prevalent spots on your website.
Len, the 3 minutes is up, but we'd be happy to read if you have a written
I do.
statement. If you
I
could
do.
distribute that to us, I'm sure
Yes,
we'd be
I have
happy to read that.
My written statements and also my research.
If you can hand that out to everybody. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak tonight? We'll move on to online comments. Looks like we have one person.
Carrie Dawn Solner.
Carrie Dawn, if you'd state your name and address. 3 minutes.
Yeah, I just want to be sure you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, great. I was having some issues. Carrie Dawn Solner, 120 East Labonte. Lance, I want to thank you for your comments about the amphitheater. We have some health issues with the amphitheater as well. Mayor, Town Council, and Town Manager, as always, thank you so much for your service. I'd like to recognize Public Works and the new pad for the farmers market. It's really great. And the neighbors really, truly did appreciate a weekend day of peace during our holiday weekend on July 4th. Thank you so much for that. Public Works, water, electricity, and streets are the core responsibilities for local government and the priorities taxpayers expect their dollars to support. As someone that works with high-profile events and has managed high-profile venues, I know how easy it can be to be distracted by shiny things and VIP performers. But the facts should always outweigh the excitement. The town-run amphitheater, while special, does not make the town money, and it costs a lot. According to the 2025 audit, I read all 77 pages, it accounts for roughly 33% of town expenses while generating just 31% of revenue. As I've shared before, I also question whether those figures include police overtime, event staff, marketing, and other related costs like the events rental office. This body represents Dillon and Dillon voters first, not amphitheater guests. At Lake Cliff, we recently had multiple long-term repeat renters complain to us about noise, particularly as predicted, the all-weekend doubleheader of Primus. And one of my neighbors, a 25-year resident, has been unable to rent her lock-off to 3 prospective renters who visited during sound checks, each saying that it was too loud. It would be different if we could honestly say the town works closely with the neighbors on reasonable limits for frequency, breaks, total hours of amplified sound. Unfortunately, we cannot say that. The town has not meaningfully engaged with the residents most affected or consulted independent acoustic experts who do this work further every day. The town has never meaningfully responded to the residents most affected, never conducted in-home testing, and never consulted with acoustic experts who say that modern technology and collaboration can significantly reduce impacts. We also cannot point to a carefully developed maximum sound limit. Instead, the town has exempted its own amphitheater from any maximum limit. Adding to that, complaints about amplified patio sound were disregarded at the last council meeting. And now the marina is permitted days of amplified sound at levels up to 100 decibels. And I've heard of complaints already. This is not a private venue. This is a town-owned, taxpayer-funded facility that should operate with transparency and public accountability. Please work to mitigate these impacts, and it should not happen behind closed doors. Dillon residents deserve a transparent, collaborative process that we will continue advocating, and we will not rest until one is codified that protects our homes, our renters,
Dawn,
and our
thank you.
families for years to come.
Thank you so much
you.
for your comments. Is there anyone else online that would like to speak? Then we will close the citizen comments and we'll move on to item 5 on the agenda, the 2025 financial statements with independent auditors report presented by Jim Hinkle, Hinkle and Company, PC.
Good afternoon, or evening, I should say. My name is, am I on? Good. Okay. My name is Jim Hinkle with Hinkle and Company CPAs, and we did perform the annual audit of the financial statements for the year ending December 31, 2025. As I've stated before, we start off our audit by updating our understanding of the town's internal accounting controls. We are specifically looking for segregation of duties. An accounting transaction typically takes 3 steps: the initiation, the approval, and the recording of that transaction. And we do not want one person doing all 3 of those steps. We look at the cash receipts cycle, the cash disbursement cycle, and the payroll cycle, all as separate cycles. We also review the policies and procedures within the accounting department to make sure that they are sound and for best practices. We do this for a couple of reasons. The first is that we are looking for what we call significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. A significant deficiency is defined as a design flaw in the system of internal controls that would allow an error to go undetected in the ordinary course of business. And a material weakness would be a significant deficiency that might result in a material misstatement to the financial statements as a whole. We actually then go through all of our testing and we test what we call control features of internal control. Those are things such as approval of invoices prior to payment as opposed to the actual payment of the invoices. Based upon our analysis, our testing, and our review, we did not find any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the internal control structure. That's the answer that you're looking for. We also then use that information to design our tests and audit procedures for the financial statements. We primarily use what we call tested details, which is pretty much what it sounds like. We drill down into account balances, we look at the underlying transactions, and we compare those to source documents such as invoices, cash receipts, contracts, agreements, etc. We also use analytic review procedures where we compare the current year revenues and expenses to the prior year, the current year to budget numbers, various relationships between the balance sheets and the income statements. And we're looking for relationships that we either don't expect or can't explain. And if we find any of those, we do more tested details on those specific accounts. The end result of that is the audit opinion. Yours is referred to as an unmodified opinion. And in layman's term, that is a clean opinion, states that the financial statements have been prepared in accordance with general accepted accounting principles. And that's also the answer that you're looking for. At the end of the audit, we issued a required communication letter, and that is where we are required to communicate in writing if certain events occur in the course of the audit. And we had nothing negative to say in that letter. We did not have any difficulties in the course of the audit. We did not have any disagreements with management on any items regarding accounting. And we did not have any audit adjustments where we found errors in the books and records that required fixing in order to be in compliance with general accepted accounting principles. So all in all, it went smooth. Probably one of the most important things I like to communicate to the governance board is that we as auditors felt as though we had open transparency. Everything that we were asked for was provided in a timely fashion, and we were never denied access to any information that we requested. So we felt like we could ask for and receive whatever we felt necessary to perform an external audit in compliance with our standards. So that went well. Any questions so far on the audit procedures? It
Not
is,
yet. I do have some, but not yet. I'll let you.
okay, it is mid-July. And so there should be no problem with filing the audit in compliance with the state requirement of July 31st with the state auditor's office. So that should be fine. I'll open it up to any other questions on the financial statements. Heather's here with me, and between the two of us, we ought to be able to field whatever questions you have on the financial statements as a whole.
Start at this end of the.
Yeah. Why'd you start down there?
All yours.
No, you sure you guys? All right. I just had, Jim knows I always have questions because I'm trying to understand the best I can. So, so on the auditor statement on the second page, which is not numbered, but it's up there. It says that the auditor does not express an opinion on the effectiveness of the town's internal controls. And so I wondered, can you explain to council and the community what that means?
Well, there's two types of engagements that we as auditors, external auditors, can be hired for along with others, but an audit of the financial statements and then a specific engagement reviewing the internal controls and testing the internal controls as a standalone engagement. We are not expressing an opinion on the adequacy of the internal controls. We test the internal control structure as part of our audit to determine the risk associated with the financial statements from the town's inherent risk. And that would then adjust our audit procedures to where if we felt that the internal controls were weak, and in some cases we do, or that they're not reliable, then we will do a lot more audit work on the numbers to ensure that the financial statements are materially accurate. That is the primary goal of the financial statement audit is the financial statements materially accurate? Not, are you compliance with laws? Do you have an internal control structure that is specific or something? Not that we're looking for fraud. It is the financial statements materially accurate? And I might just add real quickly, because that raises a great question. What is material? And it isn't a percentage. It isn't a dollar number. Though we use dollar numbers within our work to kind of help guide us. Materiality is defined as any amount that might change a user of the financial statement's opinion of the overall financial statements. 1 degree change in temperature is 1% at 0, or 100% at 0 and 1% at 100. You still can't feel it. But so we look at the financial statements as a whole and say, if we had an error, would a user change their opinion as to the financial viability of the town if they had this information? Now, we did not have any what we call past adjustments where we found small errors that we didn't make because we didn't think they were material. We did not have any of those.
So, and then my other one is, to me, the audit is really important, and it starts, it like informs the budget, and it informs the monthly finance director reports. And if we had to analyze something else, we can use it as a starting point. And so I wanted to, the whole point was kind of, I wanted to kind of reiterate to the public in a way that, you know, we use these annual financial reports so that the community can refer to and refer to them, both the audit and the budget, and they should kind of refer and complement each other. Do I have that right?
Yes, and I would expand on that just slightly. As I mentioned to you all earlier, I think it was in the spring at a work study session on how to read financial statements and things like that. One of the important outcomes of an audit that helps you throughout the year is if we found errors in the books and records at year end, we had to make material adjustments to fix the reported revenues and expenses, which we do at other places, then that would really raise questions as to the reliability of the interim financial statements that you're receiving on a month-by-month or quarter-by-quarter basis. And that comparison to the budget, which, as I mentioned earlier, is an extremely powerful internal control feature. And so the fact that we came in at the end of the year, performed this external audit, and did not find significant errors in the books and records, that raises the reliability of the monthly and interim financial statements that you see throughout the year between the two audits at the end of the years. So I think that's exactly right. It is very important. And I think the year-end audit then helps provide that reliability of the interim statements that you're receiving and the comparison between interim statements and budget numbers throughout the year.
So it gives us a comfort level. I'm out talking to HOAs for annual meetings. And the question is, what can you tell me about the financial stability of the town? And I typically point to net position, and this year it increased by 5 million. Is there anything else I should really tell them?
I would go down a couple pages to page 6 and page 8. I think we described this a little bit earlier in the work session earlier in the year. When you look, the general fund is the primary thing you need to review. The other special revenue funds collect money, hold money until they accumulate money, then they spend it. So on these special revenue funds, you might see over a course of 5 or 6 years, a buildup of that fund balance or of cash, and then the spending of the cash. But the general fund is really the operations of the town itself. The public service, the public works, the general operations of providing services to the public as a whole. So what I like to focus, and we talked about this earlier in the work session, if you look at the cash on page 6 in the general fund of $6.4 million, and then you go down to page 8 and you look at the annual expenditures in that general fund of $18.7 million, you've got, I think we talked about 3 months worth of cash on hand, 3 months of expenses on hand. That tells us that if you run into a catastrophe, wildfires are all over the place right now. If you ran into a wildfire that swept into town and knocked out a lot of the sales tax revenue, how much money would you have on hand to be able to continue to provide public works, public safety, and those essential services until FEMA type money from the state and federal government might come in? And I see that number anywhere from 3 months to 2 years worth of cash on hand. 3 months is probably the least amount that I see in towns and cities all across the state. And we probably audit in excess of 25. I generally see between 6 months and 18 months of cash on hand as a percentage of annual expenditures in that general fund. So I do think the town of Dillon is a little light, but you're not going to change that in 1 year. For you to be able to generate that kind of revenues over expenses in 1 year, you're not going to be providing services that you need to the citizens of the town. This is something that needs to be on a 5-10 year track. Okay, we want to contribute to our fund balance or cash on hand balance a certain amount, $500,000 per year over the next 5 years to build up additional reserves. That takes planning, takes a future vision, and takes time to develop that cash on hand. When I see numbers like 18 months to 2 years, that's accumulated over 20, 30 years of financial discipline by numerous different boards of trustees or commissioners. So it's not something that can be done overnight. But as you look at your 5-year, your long-range plans, capital improvement plans, things like that, that ought to be part of that planning process.
Well, it dovetails into, I said, I was going to just ask you, do you have any recommendations? You just gave one. Is there anything else that?
That would be the big one. You guys are going through a lot of internal changes, I know, here in the last 6 months. That always creates the opportunity for issues that might arise. So the sooner that some of those can be resolved, probably the better. But when we come up for this 2026 audit, we'll probably look at internal controls a little bit closer and some of the audit work a little bit closer because we've had a lot of those personnel changes throughout the year. And anytime you have that, you have a little bit higher inherent risk within the organization because of those changes and the gaps in spots being filled and things like that.
And I have one last question on the general fund, which was, what do you think about sub-funds? So for concert and marina, and part of our policies say anything, 10% or more, really should have its own kind of section.
So for general accepted accounting principles in the government arena, the GASB, we call the Government Accounting Standards Board, for financial statement reporting purposes, we can combine internal funds to make things a little bit easier to read for the reader of a financial statement. We work with Breckenridge as well, and they combine several funds within their general fund for reporting purposes. The number of funds that you want internally is really up to management and the Board of Governance to determine what do we need to effectively manage the town. I know there's been discussions about the marina, citizens' comments about whether it's making money or not. If you have sub-funds to capture that type of information that may not show up in the annual financial report, but provides management and the Board of Governance information for them to make intelligent decisions, then you're always able to do that. You can do that within your accounting system, within your general ledger, using department codes as opposed to separate funds.
Mhm.
The only requirement that GASB has is that if you have special revenue funds that bring in tax money, those have to be kept separate as funds and not departments. So it really depends on the organization and what kind of information you all want to be able to effectively make decisions. I know that wasn't a direct answer, but it really varies from organization to organization and board to board, if you will.
Oh, actually, I had one more on the water and sewer funds, but that's back in the page, in the 50s. There's big variances, and so I just didn't know what that meant. So that's like page 55. Like, go there real quick, if you can. And these are supplementary information, and I don't know where that comes from exactly.
So we have the basic financial statements. Those are your, what I will refer to in layman's term as balance sheets and income statements. Technically in governments, they have slightly different names, but those are your basic financial statements. And then they have what we call required supplementary information. And those have to be accompanying these financial statements. And that is the budgetary comparison schedules on the general fund and any other fund that's determined to be a major fund, larger funds. Then for the enterprise funds and the smaller funds, you don't have to include that budgetary information. That's supplementary information. So we have required supplementary information, RSI, and supplementary information, SI, that's not required. And that's why we put those additional budgetary information in that bottom section there at the end with the supplementary information. Now, you do have significant variances. I will give you this bit of information. We do have a GASB pronouncement that is coming out that will be effective for this fiscal year end of 26. So the next audit will have this information in it. And that is that you will be required to disclose in a narrative form the reasons for significant variances in the budgetary line items. So for example, where you've got operations where the actual expenditures are much less than the operations, or that the capital outlay, the budget number was actually a lot greater than what was actually spent, then next year we'll actually be required to have a narrative that describes the reasons for those changes. We're not quite sure the form that's going to be, whether that's a page behind each budgetary comparison schedule or at the end, but there will have to be some description as to why there's the major change.
Can you answer now why they're there currently, or?
Well, I think
I
the
realize
reason,
it'll be required next year, but.
yeah, I think, and Heather, you can step in here with comments as well. I think the capital outlay is more in the way of just didn't spend the kind of money that was originally budgeted. You had significant water improvement items that were in the original budget that did not materialize.
But this, in the water and sewer, so the operations was off, see the variance is 2,880,000.
Yeah, and do you remember what that is? I'm drawing a blank.
Oh,
No.
you can just answer later. I
But we
just
can
wanted
find that
to,
out and give you more detail.
yeah, and remember, I'm kind of reading it, kind of looking.
No, it's a
at
good
going,
question. It really is. a good question.
What, it's just, it pops out at me.
Yeah,
That's all.
and what we as the auditors look for is, stay on that page for a second. What we as the auditors look for is that you'll notice that under the final budget number for expenditures, it's 4.366 million, and the actual expenditures was 3.341 million. What we look at is the budgeted expenditures higher than the actual expenditures? Because if the actual expenditures are higher than the budgeted numbers, then in theory, you've spent money that's not been appropriated through the budget process. And that technically is a violation of state law. Not a whole lot happens about it other than you get a letter from the state auditor's office that says, don't do it again. But you're supposed to always have your total expenditures, appropriations through the budget process in excess of the actual expenditures. And that's a fund by fund basis, not category by category basis. So that's what we as the auditors typically look at. But Heather and I can actually get an answer to you all on the operations number as well.
So Barb, recall that we, because of the discovery of lead paint,
Yeah, no, that's,
shifted.
yeah, the capital I remember. It was
Okay.
just the operations.
Yeah.
I thought that was just jumped out at me. So I just thought I'd ask, well, we've got Jim here.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got the same thing on the sewer fund, just slightly smaller in relationship.
Yeah.
But as a percentage of the total expenditures, it's the same relationship.
So I just
Yeah.
was curious because because we raised rates and we're doing other things. I just was curious how those funds are doing. That's all.
Yeah, when did you raise rates?
January 1, yeah.
Of 26, right?
26.
Yeah, so we're not seeing a significant change in the budget to actual and revenues because that hadn't really taken effect yet. Yeah. Great questions. I always love good questions. Anything else?
It's number nerds, I know, but I
That's
just.
why
would
we
like
went
to-
first.
Sorry about that part. Thanks for your patience, I should say.
Any other comments from council?
Thank you for turning my 15 minutes of fame into 25. This is the fun part to me is answering questions and digging into the details and explaining things. I really do enjoy that. So thank you. And I would really recommend the more the questions, the better. The more you all know, the better you can do your jobs.
Thank you so much for
All
your
right. Thank you very
presentation.
much. I might go out and play in the rain some more.
So we'll move on to item number 6. Consideration of resolution number 34-26, series of 2026, which is the public hearing, and we will add Owen Dodd if he needs to speak to this. So at this point, the public hearing is a resolution by the town council of Dillon, Colorado, making supplemental appropriations to Housing Initiative 5A Fund for the town of Dillon, Colorado for the 2026 budget year. For the record, we'll open the public hearing. It is 7:38, and we'll now begin with the staff presentation. Heather? Priscilla?
Good evening, council and mayor. In your packet tonight is resolution 3426, which is a $500,000 supplemental appropriation to our housing fund for the Habitat for Humanity Soda Creek project. Do you guys have any other questions about it after we covered in work session or?
So then at this point, we'll open the public comments. Is there anyone signed up to speak on this issue? Seeing none, we'll open it up to council questions for staff. Since there are no questions, we'll close the public hearing and announce the time, which is 7:39. And is there any council discussion on this issue?
I think we covered it pretty well in work session and it was a commitment we had made back in November to participate. So I think we're where we should be.
Any other comments? So is there a motion to approve resolution number 34-26, series of 2026?
So moved.
Second,
Second?
roll call, please.
Councilmember Richard,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Tyne,
Yes.
Oliver,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Hurtado,
Yes.
Mayor Samuel.
Yes. The next item on the agenda is item 7, future council agendas. Are there any changes from council with regards to agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 8, reports and comments. Mayor's update. Scott and I attended mayor managers last week for the county, and we have a new Forest Service District Ranger Director who's transferred from Puerto Rico. Very nice fellow. His whole family has moved here. Since there are no new hires, the only way things are happening are through transfers. What was of top of concern was our fire dangers and protocols that might come into play should things get more serious. All of our mayors and managers in the county have been apprised and will all be available should we be needed to make decisions. So that was probably the major thing that was gone over at that meeting. Just on a personal note from last week's Saturday's concert, if you were fortunate enough to see John Lennon's son, who was the guitar player for Primus, Sean Lennon, and they did a spellbinding rendition of Tomorrow Never Knows, which I think if you were there was very special to see his son sing his dad's song. So I'll open it up to other council member comments and committee reports.
There's an EDAC meeting tomorrow at 5:30. And I believe we received 3 applicants for the vacancy. I think whoever wants to is going to come out of those applicants will come tomorrow and we'll do like a little pre-interview and then the council will vote on the member. Well, I guess we'll do interviews and we'll vote on the vacancy at our next council meeting on the 21st.
Any other comments, updates from council members, committee reports?
I do, but I was just
Okay.
waiting to see
Your
if
turn.
somebody else wanted to go first.
Oh, sorry. I kind of jumped in.
No, you guys go first. So I just wanted to give a quick update on the volunteer day at the Alley. The Volunteer Day 2026, we had 14 adults and 6 kids come and I did, yeah, can you guys pull the photos up? I sent them a few photos. were successful in putting a lot of pieces and parts in there. These are the kids building the fairy garden. And they really went after it and had a great time. You can just wander over there and check it out. Of course, it's kid size, so you got to kind of sit down on the edge and study it all. And there are all sorts of woodland animals in there. Then if you just look through, we assembled a lot of wind sculptures, painted furniture. This is just some of the group working together. We prepped some pallets that are now up for adoption. We've had 2 adoptions, and people are creating on them. It doesn't have to be painting. It can be anything. If you go on to the next one, you can just flick through them. We do have 2 chess boards on the highly colored thing. The chess pieces are arriving this week. Please come and put that to use. If you keep going, just show some more. So our fairy garden does have a boat, and I was asked about that, and I said, well, in Dillon, the fairies have boats. So there you go, Craig. So what else? That was a handmade boat. And if you think, I think we still have a couple more or no? Quick real thing on all the wind instruments. So these are the metal spinners that the kids decided to put over the fairy garden. So that was their decision. And then we have the other spinners that are kind of down that are more wind sculptures. And they're running in the other garden or bed. So that's kind of going. And so we thought it was a good, successful, fun event, and that was that. And then we also had the Colorado Municipal League, which you already saw me mention a thing, and my top 5 takeaways from that. We started out, the very first session they had was empathy. Make sure your default is empathy and not judgment. And what that means is particularly when constituents or we're speaking to each other, that we remember that everyone's coming from a different place, and that the person speaking to you might have more knowledge of the situation than you do. I thought that was there's a lot more to it, but that was kind of that. I like the keynote speaker. 3 of his big things were, if you're jealous about something, like another town is doing such and such, change that into you are inspired by that instead of being jealous. If you're afraid of things, change it to you are aware. And if you're passionate, you really should be striving to lead by purpose instead of passion and being a fanatic. So the ideas is, instead of being jealous, afraid, and passionate, choose to be inspired, aware, and have purpose. The Citizen Academy idea was really good. It's a 5-week thing. I want to talk some more to Scott about that, and it's being used in small and large towns, and people are really enjoying it. I did find out that sales tax rebates are very common in other communities, and there's some interesting ways to judge how to go for those. And I really wanted to find out more about the Employers Council and whether they can help us, particularly with creating a great culture and working on our personnel handbook that still needs to be completed. So those were my takeaways.
I like the CML, the one comment that if you think you're too small to make a difference, try being locked in a small room with a malaria carrying mosquito. And that was a Swahili proverb. I thought that was cute.
Yeah, that was good.
Anyone else comments? Okay, we'll move on to acting town manager's report. Scott, it's all yours.
Thank you. So I provided a written report for everyone. This evening, there are 3 items specifically that are not on my report that I'd like to discuss with you. The first item is the town manager recruitment. So during the break, I put a draft schedule in front of you. And this is just a draft schedule, and I would, depending on how this discussion goes, this can be the schedule or it's not going to be the schedule. And I would like comments on just kind of what we have here. This is a typical a schedule that we would use, that we've used before. And certainly, there can be more discussion, but if people have comments, if people can email me with their thoughts and their comments on different aspects of it, I'd appreciate that. The important piece of this is that I am proposing that we hire an outside search firm to assist us with the search for a new town manager. And so specifically, you can see, that task would run from approximately August 4th to August 20th, at which point it would become more of the town and town staff sort of engaging with the candidates and making arrangements and so on and so forth. But for us to be successful, I'd really like to hire the outside firm to assist us with this. We have done it a number of different ways. We've done it in-house. Doing it in-house with the staff that we have and the obligations that we have currently right now is going to be a pretty heavy lift. And so not looking for a vote, but maybe looking for consensus that we start reaching out to some of these firms and getting proposals from them, so that hopefully by July 21st, maybe we can bring some proposals to you with some numbers for costs, and we can have that debate about getting some assistance for the town manager search. But you can see that this is a process. It runs to do this, really kind of runs right up to the end of the year. So it's a pretty lengthy process. There are protocols that need to be followed, legal state protocols that need to be followed. So anyway, we in our budget review that our consultant Ms. McDonald has been helping us on, we have looked at the budget, and we have set aside funds not only for this piece, for the assistance, but also for when this council is ready to entertain an offer or something like that, that we have the funds available to do that. So that's the question. Questions for me?
Well, Scott, you and I have discussed a lot of this, so I'm going to just leave it open for council member.
Well, having been through a number of town manager searches and things like that, I agree with Scott that having an outside firm is actually more beneficial to the town. You get more quality applicants.
And there's in different phases, they'll work with council. For example, initially, usually it can be or not be a part of it is a review of the job description, a meeting. The consultant would meet with council. They would discuss the existing job description. What are the qualifications and attributes that you're looking for? You can either have them do that or you can do that on your own. I would propose that we have the consultant help us with as much of it as possible. So
Yeah, I like that idea that I think Linda was in on that session, the candidate profile of, kind of what you're looking for. And also I spoke with Margaret Bowes from CAST today, and they did a survey of all their mountain towns, of their members, about what the qualities they look for in town managers. And she did send me that today, and I was going to forward it on to you.
right. And I think certainly, I mean, a lot has changed in this town. Our town is unique, and I think definitely you need to have a discussion about what is the ideal candidate for the community and what are you looking for? So that's an important piece of this. Other questions?
I would agree. I think it's a great idea having a firm come in and help us out. And I would agree with that 100%.
Do you want to address the questions on the backside after you have a more of a process in
I
place?
do. I think that the Those will come later, but if in your, as you look at this, be thinking about those questions. And if you want to, by email individually, if you want to have a dialogue with me about that, that would be great. But I think, again, this evening, the first piece that I'm looking for really is just the head nod consensus to go ahead and pursue an outside consultant to help with this. And
Does anyone object to Scott moving forward?
Well, I'd like to see what it costs before we agree to hire one.
okay.
What Scott's asking for is, you know, proposals from things, and that would give us the cost.
Right.
I've seen it vary. I've seen, and Doug, maybe you have some more real-time costs that you've seen, but I've seen it anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000.
I wouldn't want to guess at what the
Yeah,
proposals will come
yeah.
in. It's a unique
Yeah.
situation every time, depending on size,
Right.
relocation, how hard they think it'll be, how busy they are. So, but that sounds, you know, perhaps to a third of an annual salary. Is
Yeah.
where I'd expect it to be.
So are we all okay with giving Scott the go-ahead and costs we'll look at as proposals come in?
Yes.
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 Any objections?
Thank you.
Other issues, Scott?
The second thing I would like to discuss is that we have been working quite a bit with Trace Faust with different community engagements early on the forums, the community forums that we would have, which I think that most would think were pretty successful and worthwhile. That here this year started to transition into her actually specific forward-moving actions. I think she called it Dylan Next Steps. And we were talking about, 30, 90-day plans and what is achievable and whatnot. And I see a lot of value in continuing to work with Trace. She is now, we are now out of scope and funds for the existing contract that we have with her. I would like to re-engage her for the next piece of this, which is really to kind of take the initial work and move it forward. And move it forward, I mean not only with this council, but with the community, with the different advisory groups that we have, including PrAC and EDAC. So she has engaged some with both of those groups. She is also working with and engaging with staff. And so I think really to some of the things that perhaps you guys are interested in accomplishing that we've talked about what those items are that I think she could help us with all of that. And so she and I have been talking, and I have a proposal from her to really kind of continue with those next steps. Within my spending authority, I'd also like to see if I could get consensus to engage with her as a consultant to continue that effort. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes.
I'd like to have her continue and move forward with what we've started
Okay.
going through. Absolutely.
Okay.
Is anyone not in agreement with that? I
Okay,
think you're
thank
fine
you.
with that.
Thank you. So the last thing that I want to discuss with you is a little more, it's going to be a little bit more of a difficult conversation. As you're aware, and Carrie McDonald is online and available. Carrie McDonald is our consultant helping us with the budget review that we're doing in conjunction with town staff and the departments reviewing kind of the 2026 budget and some things that have been done in the past and where we are now. One of the things that we did is we here this last week have been looking very closely at the water and sewer budget. And something that we have been concerned with since the beginning of the year is an apparent decline slow decline in revenues over time, that we thought, we started water restrictions pretty quick this year before the irrigation season started. And so we felt like when we were seeing that the decline appeared to be more than just due to the water restrictions. And so we dug into it. Carrie dug into it a little deeper, and you will recall that prior to the start of this year that I had been working very hard on a 5-year rate study, utility rate study for the community. That was after that we had done an EQR audit, and then we did many months working on a 5-year rate study. We had contemplated and discussed and debated increasing fees to cover costs in both water and sewer. That we realized at the end of 24 that we were getting behind, we needed to do something, and in 25, and that this year we needed to get caught up. So we proposed a variety of increases for your consideration, which we reviewed with you. There were some new fees that we discussed and that we added to the fee schedule. We brought that fee schedule to you for approval, for consideration and approval. Those fees were approved. After the end of the year, what we discovered is that there were a couple of fees that did not make it into the billing program for water and sewer. And so for 6 months, the $6 O&M per capita fee has not been charged to any customer. The $12 capital fee in sewer has also not been charged. And so we are now behind in water by about $80,000, and we are behind in sewer by $160,000. And so we're wanted to have the conversation with you this evening on how to move forward. What I would propose to you is that I do not want to go back to the customers back to January 1st and try to recoup those funds that we should have been collecting. I would like this month possibly to consider a rebilling, an explanation and a rebilling of what happened, and try to recapture those 2 fees. So billing's already gone out for July, but recapture those 2 fees that we missed, and then starting in August forward, make sure that both of those fees are included in the billing to the end of the year. I'll leave it at that, and I welcome any questions.
It's like on each water bill, like $18.
Correct. So your typical single family home is going to have one EQR. So you're looking at $18 per month, essentially. So
It's the businesses, our biggest water users.
correct. So it will be different for your businesses and your commercial. And certainly you have condominiums, but typically, they'll get a big bill, but typically that is all divvied up among individual customers. So but certainly the bigger impacts would be with commercial and businesses.
What about adding a small percentage to try and recoup the first 6 months?
I'm not sure that we do that this year. I mean, we could consider that. I think maybe what we ought to look at is next year, whether or not we need to increase. Next year, the increases are not, this year was a big jump. Next year, we're looking at, I believe, in a 4% and a 3%. Maybe we consider next year a little bit more of an increase to catch back up what we missed for this year.
So you would just be starting to charge what should have been started in January. We're not going to put something doubled extra for those past 6 months. It's just going to be where it should have been in January.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's going to be tight. And I don't know if Carrie wants to jump in with any comments. We are still in the process of going through the water and sewer. And I think we'll have more information on the 21st on exactly what those funds look like. But if anyone has a question for Carrie, let us know and we can recognize her. But yeah, I'm just right now, given, it's our mistake. We made the mistake. That we not really try to penalize or catch up this year, that maybe we do that try to do that over time so it's less of a burden to the community.
Carrie, do you have any comment to add?
Okay, I think can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. I guess the only thing I would add is that I did give you in my memo to you guys yesterday, I did give you some numbers. We're still working on those numbers, but the sewer fund's in fine shape, and that $12 isn't as impactful. The water side is what's more impactful. So I like the concept of maybe looking at 2027 fees and seeing if we can do something different. I would suggest that the attorney, who I've not met, but who the attorney maybe make sure that we're doing something, everything's legal about the way we're planning to handle this error. So I would suggest that, Scott. And that's something you can maybe work with him on tomorrow, but
Right.
just making sure that we're covered.
Right. Thank you, Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
How does council feel towards what Scott's proposing?
I think what Scott and Carrie are proposing for charging if it's legal would be the way to go, because I don't think we should go back and, I mean, it would really be bad for our businesses that use water to go all the way back to January and hit them with one big bill. And also, it is an enterprise fund. If necessary, we can actually give a little bit of supplement from the town to the enterprise fund in terms of about 10%.
I think we'll have to look into that. I believe that we could give ourselves a loan. In terms of increasing fees this year, the fee schedule was passed by resolution. And so I'm not sure that you could necessarily do an increase unless you went back and redid the fee schedule. But next year, we will approve a new fee schedule, which means that we could make adjustments next year in 27 to water, not to sewer, as Carrie just suggested.
But the fees were already.
The fees were already approved.
Already approved. We
Correct.
just weren't collecting them.
Correct.
It seems the most problematic thing would be to try and go back and recapture those lost fees, essentially. Applying the fee this year or this month, even rebilling we'd have to look at, but applying the fee now that we've caught it going forwards wouldn't be a problem because it's already approved. And next year would be a new year, so
Yeah.
you could adjust the rates to make up for it.
Okay.
I know increasing rates isn't favored. But maybe with the fact that you're catching up a shortfall, there might be more understanding that this was money that was meant to be collected the first half of the year, but that's up to you all to decide.
Any
I
more?
would agree. I would agree with what you're proposing and what Ben is agreeing.
It gives us time to educate people that there may be a rise coming next year and they can plan for it.
Right.
Any more direction for?
I'd say that we have to do it, obviously. Obviously, it would be very difficult to do it for July. So it should just start in August, but I guess the order of this, I don't really appreciate. Because we have to do this. So going backwards, the 50 to 100,000 possible proposal that we could end up paying for someone to help us look for a town manager. I think we should weigh heavily on our new HR manager to help us with job searching or applicant searching to help reduce that cost. And then same with Trace. I mean, she's been very helpful, but what's it going to cost?
So keep in mind that Trace is paid out of the Dura budget, which is a different budget. Both water and sewer are enterprise funds, also separate budgets. And then the town manager search and selection would come out of a different budget. So we're talking about three different funding sources.
It's all still money.
I know.
that we're spending.
I agree.
So do we need to be spending all this money?
We have the funds to do this.
I understand.
Okay.
Not making a lot of money. Do we need to be spending all this money?
Any other discussion?
So it sounds like, with maybe the exception of one, I have consensus to look at moving forward, billing the correct amount, and then we'll look at if we need to recapturing funds in 27.
We'll look at the proposals for town manager
Okay.
and.
Make a decision on that.
And Trace is your call.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. And then were there any other questions for anything else on the report that I submitted? Okay, thank you.
Next item on the agenda was executive session. Right. So I move to go into executive session pursuant to 24-6-402 parentheses 4 parentheses E CRS for the purpose of determining position, relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators related to proposed agreements between the town and the Treveni Square Metropolitan District and JGJP Dillon LLC and 24-6-402 parentheses 4 parentheses B CRS to receive legal advice on the potential contract and legal questions related to the proposed agreements in which the session or portions of the session will not be recorded. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Tyne,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Oliver,
Yes.
Bertano,
Yes.
Mayor Samuel.
Yes.